Good afternoon, learners, parents, guardians, and colleagues. We'd like to welcome you to our occupational therapy presentation, where we will share some information about the profession. Today, I'm joined by my colleague Hanske and a fourth-year student, Luwando. I have the privilege of interviewing him about his journey in occupational therapy at UCT. So while you watch and listen, feel free to engage with the polls and ask questions in the chat where Hanske will manage the question and answer section. We will also be doing some Mentimeters in between. So get your smart devices ready for that fastest fingers first action. So what is occupational therapy? We cannot explain occupational therapy without talking about occupation. So occupation is generally the things that we do, how we perform and engage in the things we do every day. As occupational therapists, we care about people and what people do, the ordinary and extraordinary things. So if you think about yourself as a learner, you engage in learning, self-care and leisure as your daily occupations. But then you also have those extraordinary things, like making TikToks and doing various activities to gain new followers on Instagram and other social media platforms. So when we have difficulty in engaging in these everyday activities or occupations, you will then see an occupational therapist who will intervene and support you so that you are able to do the things that you find meaningful and purposeful to you, especially when you have a disability. But we also need to understand that sometimes the context can also impact on what you feel about what you are able to actually do. So Luwando, why did you want to become an occupational therapist?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Shireen, for the question. So I was attracted to the uniqueness of the degree. I like the fact that I would be able to impact people by allowing them to do, but not just do, but do activities that they would be able to derive meaning and purpose from doing. So I like the fact that I would be able to impact people in terms of enhancing their physical, mental, psychological, and spiritual health. And I think that's what made me love it.
Thank you, Luwando. So now I think it's time for us to hear what the audience has as their favorite occupations. So fastest fingers first, type in your Mentimeter code and let's hear about your favorite occupation. So Luwando and I and Hanske in the chat, we are anxiously waiting to hear what you have to share with us. Thank you so much, guys, for letting your fingers do the working there. Remember, we've got a few more Mentimeters coming up.
So I hope you can see that some people are answering ceramics, playing soccer, sleeping, exercise, hiking, music, baking, running, dancing, diving, eating, Netflix, sailing.
And all of those are all very, very valid occupations. Thank you so much, guys, for interacting with us. So if we go a little bit further and we think about what the areas of practice are, I am currently a staff member who works within the domain of child learning, development, and play. I'm passionate about working with children, parents, caregivers, and educators. And although some children do not have an actual diagnostic disability, the children are limited through the context they find themselves in, and therefore they cannot engage in the activities and occupations that they find meaningful or purposeful. And that is when we intervene as occupational therapists. So as you can see on the slide, we have 5 domains of practice: child learning, development and play, work practice, community development practice, physical health, and mental health. So as you can see on the slides, we have child learning, development and play, work practice, physical health, mental health, community development practice. So our curriculum develops over the 4 years, and throughout the 4 years, Each student will have the opportunity to experience working in these 5 domains. In first year, we do the introduction to occupational therapy. In second year, we do the holistic assessment of the occupational human, as well as the context they find themselves in. In third year, we move on to intervention, and fourth year, integration, where we look at the complete 4 years of study. Do you want to share with us perhaps what your favorite or domain is thus far?
Okay, so my favorite domain is mental health, and that is particularly because I'm from a small town in the Eastern Cape called Yugi. And I found that the concept of mental health is something that is foreign there. And I've seen that people that have mental issues or mental illnesses are treated as though they're not humans, and they're not given the dignity that any other human being is given. So for me, mental health OT would be a chance for me to advocate and to kind of provide information about mental illness, and to kind of give the reality rather than the myths that exist about mental illness. So I'd like to, it's a nice area in which I can explore and to actually show people that people with mental illnesses also do have needs, and they do have things that they find meaningful, and they do want to have purpose in life.
Thank you so much, Lwanda, for sharing that. And as people can hear, that although he says that his favorite is mental health, he's actually boarding on community development practice as well, because that goes how he will deal with people with stigma in the community as well. Thank you, Lwanda. So if we move to our next Mentimeter, we'd like to know, where do you think occupational therapists can work? If you think about, you can use your fingers in the meantime. I'm just going to query a little bit. So if you think about what we said about child learning development and play, community development practice, mental health, physical health, as well as work practice, that should give you an idea of where OTs would find themselves once they're qualified. So let's see what you can come up with.
So there have already been quite a number of answers there, Shireen, and they are displayed on the screen. So we've already had at least 10 have already answered.
Wow. And there's quite a variety, it seems. Okay, because normally when people come into occupational therapy, they just want to work with children, but I can see it's really changed, and we have quite a wide variety of places where people know where occupational therapists can actually work. So if we move on and we think about where we would find work placements, Lwanda, where do you want to work after ComServe?
I would like to do mental health in public hospitals, and that's because I've seen that people that are in public hospitals are mostly people that are coming from poor backgrounds. And I think that's where most of the misinformation is about mental illness, because people don't have the resources. So for me, it would be a thing of advocating for the rights of people that have mental illnesses, and also having a platform to actually give resources that would enable people that have mental illnesses to cope with their mental illnesses, to also be able to integrate within society or community, and to be perceived as human beings that also do have dignity. So for me, I really would love to work in that area, because I think there's a lot that I can do in terms of community development, and yeah, there's a lot.
Great. We can see that Lwanda is very passionate about what he wants to do one day. So although Lwanda wants to be a mental health OT, OTs can work in any field and across any age group in the lifespan. They work in hospitals with the physically disabled or the mentally challenged, but also in children's homes, old age homes, open labor markets, or in communities with vulnerable groups, such as refugees or victims of gender-based violence. But we also do those.
Your slide.
We also do those extraordinary things where we actually can work in mines or in prisons. I think I'll just carry on in the meantime because it is showing share on my side, so I'm not sure what the problem can be. Luwando, maybe you can tell us a bit about your experiences as an occupational therapy student here at UCT.
Okay. It has been quite an eye-opening experience for me. What I've come to learn is that people are to be understood within their context, meaning that the way that people behave is shaped by how they were brought up and where they come from. So for me, I've learned to be more compassionate and to kind of be very careful with the way that I approach people, because I do understand that sometimes people behave in a way that is not necessarily ideal or how you would want them to behave, but not because they are at fault, but because the context that they come from has shaped them to be the way that they are. So for me, it has opened my eyes to actually approach people in a much more respectful and compassionate way, because there's a lot that happens in one's context that we may not be aware of that determines the behavior that they have. That has been the biggest lesson for me.
Thank you for that.
I think we've lost Shireen. Would you like to carry on a little bit? So perhaps we can just quickly show some of the engagement with the colleagues around what they think the qualities of an OT are, and perhaps you can talk through that. I'll share that screen quickly.
Not a problem.
So thank you so much. We've had at least 10 already answering the kinds of qualities. Would you like to chat to that?
Most definitely. Patience is a big one because you really need to be patient. And I think most of the time, so clients are not really, clients are not compliant. Oh, I'm referring to clients because we don't refer to other people that we work with as patients, because we do not want to create any power dynamics. A lot of our OT work is about collaboration. So we view the people that we work with as our equals. So they're our clients, not patients. So yeah, patience is a big one. Hard work, kindness. One needs to be reliable because you always need to, you need to provide therapy that is realistic to the context of the person. You need to be trustworthy. Compassion, I can see it's a very big one there. Communication, because you need very good communication skills to understand the background of the client, to understand what it is that they need, because our career is client-centered. So you don't come with what is prescribed, but you just do what is needed by the client. Yes, helpfulness, because you need to be able to provide skills that will enable the client to perform in whatever occupation or activity that they want to perform in. So if there are, for example, some barriers within the environment that disable the client to engage in the activities. So you'd have to be able to advocate for the client and give them the skills to actually speak for themselves. You don't speak for the client, you allow them the platform to speak for themselves, because they are the ones that know what they need.
Thank you, Luwando. I just wondered if you can, there's Shireen back again.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened, but maybe Luwando can tell us a little bit about the occupational therapy student body.
Okay.
That we have here.
Yes, we have the Occupational Therapy Association of South Africa, Southern Africa, a student branch, which is OTESAS. So this is a body that aims to provide comprehensive support to the undergraduate students in OT, and it plays a big role in advocating for students in terms of addressing the professional challenges that they face. And it's a very big platform for us because we've always feel heard when we are in need. And it has been recently launched in UCT. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Luwando, and thank you for sharing your experiences with the audience today. So maybe we can hear from Hanske if there's any questions in the chat that we can answer for the audience.
Yes, there's a question, Shireen, just let me get it, about maybe Luanda can also, what is the difference between the work a psychologist or therapist does and the work an OT does with regards to mental health?
Okay.
Luanda, do you want to answer that question?
Okay, I can try. So the emphasis of occupational therapy is doing. I think that's what makes it distinct. So when you're providing mental health services, your aim is to give the client skills such as, for example, assertiveness training, skills such as being able to bake or being able to follow steps, that type of thing. So your mental health provision is about enabling the client to get the skills that they need to engage in the activities that they feel they need to do, but they are being they have this obstacle, which is their mental illness. So I think maybe that's what makes it distinct. Whereas, for example, with a psychologist, you would get counseling and maybe strategies as how you can cope with your mental illness, that alone, but it does not necessarily emphasize why you need that or where you would apply that. I hope that makes sense.
And then we've got, thank you. Then we've got an interesting question. Why should I study OT at UCT and not Stellenbosch?
Because we're the best university in Africa.
That's true.
Yes, and we have a good balance between the theoretical and clinical platforms, and the exposure that students get is very vast. It's very broad. Even within community development practice, we apply a lot of occupational science and don't just focus solely on rehabilitation and within the communities, but also working with other types of groups and not just the people that are disabled.
And there's a lot of diversity, so it helps with being culturally competent. So there's a lot to learn here.
Can I ask another question, Luanda? Which year so far would you say has been the most maybe challenging for you? Because remember, you came from a small town and now you're in a big city. Was that difficult, the transition?
Most definitely, it was, because I wasn't used to most things that are, Cape Town is very big. So it was my first time coming here. So adjusting to the environment and not understanding myself within the context. So I think OT has helped me in understanding where I fit in terms of the context that I'm in. And so first year was probably the most difficult year that I've had, yes.
And have you got some tips for students or prospective students who are entering the program?
I think what I've learned is to be very much reflective. It helps because you're able to identify what you need for yourself, what growth you need. So I'd say reflect a lot, reflect on your experiences, reflect on what you need, reflect on what you want to achieve, and also remain true to yourself, because some people tend to lose themselves because they want to fit into what is considered ideal. There's no ideal way of living other than living your truth. So I'd say be yourself and explore and be reflexive, and also allow yourself to engage in the occupations that you find meaningful, because people tend to like, oh, now I'm in university, I must just focus on studying. There's more to university than just studying. There's a lot that you can learn from interacting with other people. I think that's my advice.
Absolutely, and it's about enjoying that journey.
Most definitely.
Apologies, Shireen. We have 4 minutes left.
So I think we just want to take this chance. Is there any more questions, Hanska?
Not at the moment. Thank you, Shireen.
Okay. So we'd just like to thank Luanda once again for coming to share his experiences with us. I want to thank Karen and everybody else in the background for assisting us today. And and come along to UCT. We are a wonderful team here, and I'm sure you will have a great experience working with us, collaborating with us, working alongside us, and remembering that we learn together. That's our motto in the OT department or the Division of Occupational Therapy, that we don't know it all, and we're happy to learn from you and with you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Shireen.